And we're live!
Yay!
Welcome to our second episode of Theatre Talks. If you are watching it now alongside us, then thank you for tuning in. If you're watching it in the future, we hope you enjoy it. So this is a series that we are doing kind of as long as we're in lockdown. And it's just a chance for us to continue sharing our love of the arts with you guys. So if you are watching it live, then please do know that you can comment in the chat. I'm pointing to my imaginary computer over here. You can comment in the YouTube chat live with us. We've been sent in some great questions and we're going to be answering those, but you can ask us anything in the chat as well. Do you guys want to just quickly introduce yourselves?
Sure.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve. If you're associated with Shine Like Stars, then we've probably met. I've written a few plays for Shine Like Stars specifically, which we've produced, and I've written a few other things as well.
Yep, I'm Vicky. I'm Shine Like Stars assistant director. I've also written 2 scripts for Shine Like Stars. Yes, 2.
So far.
So far. I may be working on more. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. I'm Debbie. I'm the creator of all this madness. If you're watching, then you probably have met me as well. And I mainly adapt scripts for Shine Like Stars. We stage between 4 to 6 shows a year, so a lot of that is adaptations from other plays and books and TV shows and movies. But I do script writing myself, but I mainly rely on my 2 wonderful script writers here for that. So we've been sent in some great questions, and I'm going to kickstart things with what I think is a really interesting question, and that is it ever, or do you find it easy to start with a blank page when it comes to writing scripts? What do you guys think?
No. Yeah. I never sit down and I'm gonna write a script and then open up a blank thing and start writing.
Sure.
I could never do that. They tend to sit in my head for at least 6 months before I put anything down on paper, really. So yeah, I find it, and usually those ideas come from conversations with you, Debbie. Sometimes other things as well. So yeah, just sitting down with a blank page is my nightmare.
I do remember us not too long ago plotting an entire show in the space of an hour.
It happens.
It does happen. What about you, Steve?
No, I must say I never start with a blank page. I start with an idea. When I have an idea for something, then I go looking for the blank page or the blank screen and start filling it in. I think that's the way writers tend to write, unless you're writing to a deadline or you're writing to fulfill something. And I would hate to be in that position, to be told, have a story or a script by Friday and look at the blank page. I think that would stifle creativity for me anyway. Some of my favorite writers, like C.S. Lewis, said that before he wrote Narnia, he just had a picture in his head of a little fawn running through the snow, and he thought, that's interesting, I wonder what this is about. And from that came the 7 Chronicles of Narnia. And I think a lot of writers would be like that. They would have an idea, hear a voice or something similar, and then the ideas would start to flow.
That kind of actually leads on to a question that Sam asked, which was how do your ideas for scripts start?
Usually it's just an idea. They usually start in a conversation. I'm having a conversation with somebody and I think, or maybe they say, it's a good idea for a story or something. And when I'm thinking about it, I think, yeah, you could do this, you could do that. There could be this character. And a lot of my stories start that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of mine start with conversations. As I said, usually with you, Debbie. But I think like definitely the last two play ideas I've had have come from us having tea together and thinking of ideas, and you just saying, I'd really love it if somebody wrote a play like this for me, and then half an hour later, as we finish our dinner, I'm like, Debbie, I've got that play for you.
Notice that I only ever say that in your presence, though.
Yeah.
I wish someone would write me.
But other than that, it would be things like inspiration from kind of songs or other stories as well. I'm very musically driven, I think, so songs quite often spark ideas in me.
It's funny because whenever I think of and again, like this, I particularly find because I adapt kind of more plays than I write from scratch nowadays. Whenever I'm thinking of how to adapt something, I always have to find out like how a particular scene would work. Like I remember when we did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was years ago. But the thing for me was, how do you do going through the wardrobe? Because I thought that's the scene that I want people to comment on, and that's the scene that I want people to remember and to say, "Oh, that worked." I remember it took me about 6 months when I first got the idea that I wanted to do that show to work out what's the best way to do it, and that idea of doing it in Travers style and the wardrobe sliding past and almost like the scene coming through. That was when I just kind of went, "Oh yeah, we can do this. Like this is the show that I want to do now." I've always kind of had that weird mindset when it comes to script writing. Like considering we're doing Pirates of the Caribbean as our SLS Theatre at Home show next week, the only way I knew that play would work was when I thought of how to do the skeletons with the UV makeup. Because we'd actually gotten so many recommendations from people saying we should totally do that. And I was like, I don't know how to do the skeletons. Wouldn't look good. Wouldn't be great. And then I thought the UV paint and was like, oh yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it next year. It'll be great. Yeah, it's funny. We had the question, do you ever feel limited in your writing because it's performed on stage?
I'm going to say no to this, but mostly because I like to give, because I usually write stuff for you, for the kids, for Shine Like Stars. I like the challenge of like, how would we do that? So like in William and Theodore, I was like, I'm going to put a dragon in. How are we going to make a dragon? I don't know. We'll work it out. It'll be fine. And we worked it out and it was fine. So, I mean, there's obviously things like settings and stuff you have to think, how would I do this on stage? But a lot of the time I'm like, I'll throw it in. We'll find a way. We'll work it out.
That's interesting as well. I think that's one of the things that makes script writing so different from like novel writing or anything else, is because whatever you're writing has to be performed by human beings. There is a weird technicality to that in thinking, whatever we put in has to on some level work. And yeah, like the William and Theodore thing, like putting in a dragon and kind of going, what do we do? Physical theater, it's fine. We'll throw something there. Yeah, have you guys ever like had ideas for stuff that you've then kind of thought, actually, I probably can't do that because it's being performed by humans?
In my case, no. If I'm writing for the stage, I'm always aware of that, and if anything, perhaps a bit limited by it. As you said, with the idea of a dragon, if you have to have a dragon in the story, then how do you do that? And you can think of inventive ideas. Never actually have the dragon on stage, just have people cowering or whatever in reaction to it. You could do that. I don't find it limiting. I think that was the question, simply because I'm always aware that I'm writing for theatre and I've centered the story around that. If I wanted to write for short stories or for books or for the screen or something, then you write to that, and perhaps you're not as limited in some ways, especially if you're doing a book, because you can let your imagination run riot. But no, the answer to the question, the original question, is no, I don't feel limited. When I wrote plays like the director's cut and Showtime, I specifically wrote it for a theatre setting, so there were no dragons.
Oh, but there could have been.
There could have been.
The dragon.
They probably wouldn't have had to ask who done it.
Steph says that was such a great show. Whatever happened to the wardrobe? I don't know what happened to the wardrobe from the Limit to the Wardrobe.
One of us got it in our spare room. I'm not sure.
It was very unstable, though, from what I remember. It always felt like it was about to tip over at any point. Do you ever write for specific actors? I mean, I think we can all kind of agree that yes. For anyone who's like not familiar with our format at Shine Like Stars, a lot of our like plays that get written for us get written in our summer term, which is what would be now like May to July term, and we tend to kind of write stuff. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Like we tend to kind of write stuff that we know a certain like amount of students. We kind of know the idea of what kind of students are going to be there, and then kind of write for that type of group. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I definitely have done. And then, so the play that I'm currently working on, I had completely cast. And then the two people that were going to be my two leads were both like, oh, we're not going to be doing that term, sorry. And I was just like, no! So it's dangerous. But also, everything's been postponed now, so anything could happen.
Because I'm not going to ask you what you're working on.
Yeah, I do the same, I think. I'm probably aware of the group of people that will be performing the play at some stage. And so, yeah, you think, maybe you think, I hope certain people take certain roles, or that Debbie cast them in certain roles as the director. But I mean, in the case, I wrote a play, the director's cut. Let's take Showtime as an example. And then some years later, we did Showtime 2. So in that case, I simply asked one of the lead characters from the original play, would you be willing to do it again? And when they said yes, and I had that in an unbreakable contract and knew they couldn't back out, I proceeded to write the play from that person's point of view, and then other people were asked, would you mind reprising your role from the original play? So there was an example of writing very definitely with characters in mind, with people in mind. Yeah.
I think it's also so I'm very aware when I'm writing that the age group that we're writing for, because we're writing for youth quite often, like there's some things that like I would make slightly different if I was writing it for the adult group. And I know that there is one play that I'm working on that would be more for the adult group, because I just feel like the subject matter is just a little bit higher, I guess, like older in terms of age. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that I think about when I'm writing, just like, is this appropriate for the kids that we've got, for the age group that they are, especially if like we split them as well. If I was to do something for juniors and seniors, you then have to think, okay, the seniors can take on something a bit heavier, juniors, some of them could, but maybe not all of them. So yeah.
I'm sorry if my eyes are darting everywhere, by the way. I have like stuff open on this screen and on this screen. I'm trying to find people chats. Somebody sent us in a question, has a play ever changed drastically from page to stage? So it's like from what you've originally written, has it changed very much once the actors got involved?
No, but it would be very interesting if it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that with, again, William and Theodore, we added a lot of stuff in during the process, but I feel like the main structure and the story didn't change. It was just we added little, because it was inspired by The Play That Goes Wrong. So we added lots of little things in that went wrong. Like Jenny was playing the narrator and threw the cup at one point, and that was just something we added in. So only in that way, I think.
Actually, so just because you brought it up now, it's in my head. But there was a scene during that play that you had written, and it was just a conversation between the king and the queen, and it was quite a short scene. And I think it was more kind of just inputting stuff for the audience. And I remember when I read it, I asked you, could we have somebody walk in and faint or collapse, whatever it was. And the whole scene kind of like changed the tone. It happened like quite.
It did, yeah.
Which was so good of you to like allow it to happen to your script.
But it was great. It worked so well.
I remember just having read it and kind of gone like, oh, this is really good. And then just having this idea and kind of being like, oh, what if we did do this? And the whole thing, I think it was a scene between two people, and it ended up a scene between like 10, because everyone was trying to get him off stage while the conversation was happening. And that is, it was interesting. Is adapting easier? Someone asked. I personally would say yes, in the sense that it's not something that's coming directly from you. So whatever you're adapting, whether it's a book or a play or a movie or something, you already have a beginning, middle, and end to work with. So it's mainly in how you're going to bring it into a new life, is the way that I would kind of look on it. That's usually kind of my biggest challenge with adapting anything, is you want to make something that fans of it will really enjoy. But also something that you can kind of go, this isn't just a copy and paste job. It's you've made it worthwhile in another medium. So have you guys done much adapting?
I've never done it.
Yeah, you're the expert here. And I wonder then, in what order do you do things? Do you sort of simply look at a story that you're going to adapt and say, first of all, how many characters can we put in this? Or, do we have to drop certain ideas because they have dragons in them? Or, where do you start with a story that you're going to adapt?
I mean, I suppose definitely whatever complications the story has. So for instance, if it's something that involves a lot of technicalities, like doing the Philosopher's Stone, I held off on that for so long. I mean, pretty much since the beginning of Shine Like Stars, I had people saying, you got to do, a Harry Potter adaptation, or you got to do this. And it's really hard, especially on like a pretty much zero budget, to do any fancy trickery. And the only reason that I ended up saying yes to it was when I thought actually doing it as an immersive show, so that the audience feel like they're stepping into this, wizarding school. Then I was able to kind of go, okay, well, the trickery is going to be a little bit easier because you don't have somebody sat watching an entire stage. It's happening around you, which means that there's so many more easy ways to distract somebody and say, look over there while something happens. But that was something that really held me back from doing that for years, was because I thought there's too many special effects that would be needed. It's way too technical to play. I remember even stuff like when we first did The Princess Bride, I cut out Fezzik because I knew that there was not going to be any cast members that would properly fill the role of a giant. But that was more of a case of just, can we lose that character and still tell the story well enough? And thankfully it was a yes situation, even though I love Fezzik. Does that answer your question? I can't remember what your full question was.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in terms of blocking it out, what would you do? Would you decide what characters were going to stay in, or what plot points had to go? Yes, that answers it.
Oh, we've got a question from MJ. What are differences between a script written for youth and adult actors to perform? The material, how kind of age appropriate it is, would be a big thing.
Yeah, subject matter, what it talks about. I think also like length of like line chunks. Like I wouldn't give too many massive monologues for a youth to
Mm.
do, unless I knew the person and knew they could handle it. Because that can be quite difficult to learn big chunks of dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And possibly also like the things like the physical theatre stuff. You don't want too dangerous of lifts, just in case.
Adults can sign a contract saying they don't mind dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the subject of movement, if I'm writing a script, for young people, I would certainly include plenty of safe movement in it, moving around.
Mm.
I think that young people generally that works better if they've got movement, if they're going from here to there, and certainly if you're doing song and dance and that's easy to put in. But yeah, movement around it. That's the only thing I'd add to what you said, Vic. Yeah.
And we did get asked, so I kind of need to ask you guys. What are you working on at the moment? Is there anything you can share? Because I've had this question every week.
Well, I don't know. Are we allowed to share super secretive possible Shine Like Stars shows? Or
share concepts? I mean, we're in lockdown, so our
that's
shows
true.
will happen for a little while.
Because I'm working on a sci-fi based show. That's one of your. Oh, I'd love it if someone wrote a sci-fi.
We don't have sci-fi at Shine Like Stars.
Nope. So yeah, that I'm also, as I said, working on one for the adult group that's based in a pub, and it all just stays in the same room in the pub, mostly because as a backstage manager, I don't like changing scenes. So if everything happens in the same scene, then that's fantastic. And then I'm also, as I was talking to you guys before we came live, working on, I did NaNoWriMo last year, National Novel Writing Month, and I'm working on sorting out my mess of my 50,000 words from that. Struggling a little though in quarantine, but not quarantine, lockdown, whatever. But I'm supposed to be working on that anyway.
Yeah. I like that idea, as you can probably guess, of having everything just as it is in one room. Both the director's cut and Showtime were written with that idea in mind. Let's not have people going off and changing costume and changing props, and any more than we can help it. So the next play I write, unfortunately, I'll probably have to let that idea go and do something more original. I'm writing a few things at the moment, really for the sake of writing, because I think if you want to write, it's unlikely that you're just going to churn out a great screenplay or play or novel or whatever. You need to practice. So, writers should always be writing. Aspiring writers should always be writing. I'm working on a fairy tale of sorts.
Nice.
At the moment. But it involves children and magic and things happening. And if it ever sees the light of day, it'd be quite a long story, but that keeps me going. I scribble bits down now and again and ideas and that. More seriously, I'm working on a story which involves a lot of research. It's about two women who met over 100 years ago, but their story is very up to date, very modern. It's involving a lot of research, but I'm getting a lot of ideas down, collaborating with one or two other people on it, and that's good. I'm also working on a play, bits and pieces. The play is about an extended family. We're exploring their ramshackle house, which they've just inherited. one of them dies. I mean, it couldn't be a good play that I write without somebody dying. And for the second act, all the same actors are involved, but they all play different characters in the family 100 years earlier. And we find out what led to the death, you know, in this world. And that just started with an idea that I'm teasing out at the moment. And that's enough to be going on with, I think.
I am currently working on the Magician's Nephew script. Normally when I write like an adaptation of a play, I will start writing it usually the month before we're to start, so that it's all like kind of entirely fresh, and I'll already have kind of plotted certain things, but in terms of actual sit down and write it, I'll kind of have 2 weeks and a month to crack down on it. But I have to like have something to properly focus my Shine Like Stars brain, so I've been working on it early. Because that one is due to start in September if, you know, all goes well. And it's very exciting because I love returning to the world of Narnia. And especially this one. This one has so much resonance with me from reading it as a child. I'm like Vicky, I'm also working on a book at the moment that I started NaNoWriMo last year, which I'm halfway through editing now and kind of getting into the last quarter, and suddenly hit a brick wall of, oh, there's so many more interesting things I could be doing than writing this. So let's go do all those instead. Yeah, let's go binge watch shows in the 60s. So trying to focus my brain there has been tricky. But yeah, and just occasionally jotting down ideas for other things, such as a web series that I've wanted to write for years, and a play that someday might see the light of day and things. But they're very much in notebooks that I kind of keep with me idly. Steph has said, I started work on that Gangsta 40s musical themed show that I mentioned before, based on a classic book. If you guys don't know what that is, I do, and it's very exciting.
I think I know what it is as well, and I'm very excited.
It was all like a big swing dance scene. Have you any tips for beginning script writers? Inspiration? I think, like Steve, I'd say it's very important to write, just, you know, whatever it is. Even if it's, you know, half a page a day of something that might never see the light of day or get used, it's good just to keep honing your craft. Like, you know, dancing or exercising or whatever, it's, you know, if you don't use your muscles, then they get flabby. If you don't use your skills, they're never going to grow. What do you guys think?
I'd also say reading, especially so if you want to write theatre or film or TV, whatever it is, get hold of some scripts. So when I first started thinking about wanting to write scripts, I thought about what my favourite plays were and my favourite films, and I actually managed to get my hands on the scripts for Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz by Edgar Wright, because I love Edgar Wright. And I also got a couple of script books. So I think I've got Billy Elliot, The Play That Goes Wrong I've got, and Into the Woods, Sometime. And I think it's just really good just to look at how other people write scripts. Especially for ones that you love. So if you've got a favourite play, go on the internet and try and find the script. They usually do have them on Amazon or something. Do some reading.
Yeah, I think that's good. And also watching, and whether it's Netflix or latest film at the cinema, you know, keep watching things, keep reading things, and thinking about how other people put ideas down and turn them into either television or scripts or whatever. Apart from that, I think that, you know, everybody has their own technique. What works for one person won't necessarily work for somebody else. One of my favorite books written by Susanna Clarke, and Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell, was written in bits and pieces over 10 years, just jotting down in notebooks ideas that occurred to her until eventually it all fitted together like a big jigsaw. And I think that if you went to a script writing class, not many people would tell you to do that, you know. I would just write a bit on the envelope here and on the napkin there. It'll work one day. You know, that's not the way you teach it. But that's what worked for her. And it's taken her another 10 years to do her second book. So, you know, she's still been scribbling. Other people are very disciplined and they can sit down and write for a few hours, you know, 2 hours, 8 hours a day, whatever. And they probably work for a more disciplined schedule. You know, if they're blocked, they can't think of ideas, they know what to do. Go out, take a walk, watch something on Netflix, read a book, as we said. You know, and that probably helps them. So the key is, I think, to find what works for you. And if you have to read a few books on script writing or you know, take a few classes, ask a few people, chats like this, until you come up with what works for you, and try and stick to it, then make it work.
We've had just one more question come in, and then I think that's going to be us for today. The question is, how important is the audience in making a production run smoothly? I think it kind of depends on the show, in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, something that we will all be aware of is that you can do the same show. You can put the show on for a week, you know, 2 days, whatever. And one night it'll get a great reaction. Everybody laughed in the right place, you know. Everybody went, ooh, when the reveal came. And the next night, nothing. And you're, you know, especially if, as we often are backstage, you're wondering, is anybody watching? Or yeah, so audiences can be important. And if an audience is very responsive, that's certainly bouncing off the performers, off the actors on stage, whether they're young or old. And they will certainly respond to that. And the director won't have to keep saying to them, you're flagging, where's your energy levels at? You know, you raise them, because, you know, the audience are generating that reaction. They're reacting to it and they're performing, you know, to the best of their ability. If everything is falling flat, then it's more difficult. It's going to be more difficult for the performers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can always tell backstage when we've got a good audience or not.
Yeah.
And just after the first scene, just how everybody comes off, like what they're like in response to it. You can also always tell when Megan's in the audience, because you can hear her laughing, which is great, and the kids love it. I'd also say that the one time that audience is really, really like has an impact is when you're doing immersive shows.
Yeah.
If you've got an audience that just don't want anything to do with it and don't want to join in, it makes everything so much more difficult. But then if you've got an audience that are really willing to get involved, it's so much easier.
And really, like in that kind of case, like an audience that's willing in an immersive show is instantly going to lift the show 10,000 times better.
Oh, definitely.
Like I remember when we did Labyrinth a year ago or 2 years ago, and there was a moment when some characters had like come across the audience as such. They kind of found them and they're like, come on, we have to go find Sarah. And they started calling for Sarah, and the entire audience started calling for Sarah because they just thought, oh, this is what we do. You know, we call out for her. They were going looking for her. And by contrast, you know, the next group of audience that came through were all kind of huddled together, just like, okay, we'll come through. We'll come through. We're there. Yeah, immersive shows really make a difference what kind of audience you have. And the best audience are the ones that are willing just to go with the flow and say, yeah, we're part of the game. Cool. Okay, so have you got any last stuff that you guys want to share before we announce our Channel Stars Challenge?
as well, if anybody's watching this, whoever sent in the question, tips for starting off, just keep persisting. Until your writing gets better and better. Write for a specific group, for a specific theatre group, if you like. Try and get your stuff. Try and get somebody to perform your stuff. It's always good when you see your work being performed, when you see somebody putting their heart and soul into putting on a production, something that you've written. So I just encourage you, keep on keeping on.
I'd also add to that, say that if you're doing fiction, find a friend you trust to read it, to give you decent feedback. It's no use just having someone say this is good. It's kind of like you need specifics, and you can find a friend who will be good at doing that. And if you're writing a script, if you can't get people to perform it, maybe get some of your friends around to just do a read through, and you can have tea and biscuits and read through a script, and that really gives you a good idea of how it will sound and what it will be like and where you can improve things.
I feel like I should say at this point as well that for years I have wanted to do script writing workshops at Shine Like Stars. And I've always just kind of wondered, is there a huge interest in it? So if you are watching this and if you are interested in us doing script writing workshops where you guys can learn more and can share your work with us as well, then please do let us know, because it's something I would love to run with these guys. Keep pointing here, my screen is mirroring these guys. Do let us know if there's anything like that you guys would ever like us to run. Once lockdown is lifted, we will be back running loads of workshops. Cool. Okay. Well, we made a promise that we would announce just before we finished our next SLS challenge. And I'm really excited about this one. I know I say that about all of them, but this one I think people can have the most fun with. So our next challenge is called SLS Change the Genre Challenge. And your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to take a famous book, play, movie, TV show, whatever you want, and you have to find some creative medium as a way to show us that in a new genre. So maybe you're going to make a fake poster showing us Willy Wonka as a horror movie. Or maybe you want to do a 4-minute short film of Romeo and Juliet as a comedy. Whatever way you want to do it, it is up to you. We want you to be as creative as you possibly can, but the whole idea is to get something and change the genre. So full details of that are going to be on our social media pages, and there will be an email going out to anyone on our newsletter. Steph has asked, can I enter? And the answer is yes. It's not just for Shine Like Stars students. It's open to anyone of any age. So do enter. And next week, we'll be back with more theatre talks. Let's see if I can remember the topics. On Tuesday, it's improvising and devising. So for everyone who is wondering about Requiem, which is our up-and-coming devised project, we'll be talking a bit about that as well, and more about immersive shows. And then next Friday, us three will be back with Mandy to talk about directing. So same as always, feel free to send us in your questions, and feel free to come and join us again live. It's been great seeing you guys. Thank you both you two for joining us as well.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you liked it. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.